In Week 10, the mighty Vikings defense pulverized the Packers to extend their winning streak to 7 games. The Jets surrendered a season-low 3 points to ex-Vikings quarterback Joe Kapp and ex-Jets quarterback Mike Tolliver by only allowing 80 total yards of offense in Week 10. The Vikings were 11-point favorites visiting the sights and sounds of Shea Stadium in Flushing, New York. Jets quarterback Joe Namath did not play due to a broken bone in his right wrist, so second-year quarterback Al Woodall out of Duke was the starter for two-time NFL champion and one-time Super Bowl champion head coach Weeb Ewbank. His Vikings counterpart was stoic Bud Grant. This game was to be a knockdown, drag-out fight that would be settled in the trenches. Number 32 Emerson Boozer rushed 16 times for 61 hard-earned yards. Al Woodall ran once for 9 yards and said enough of that. Number 37, George Nock had a career game as he set a Jets single-game rushing attempt record with 32 for 117 yards. His 15-yard touchdown was only the second that the Vikings gave up to that point and would only surrender a total of 3 for the entire season. George Sauer Sr. was a running back for the Packers from 1935 through 1937. His son only played 6 years for the Jets, but he was an underrated star, as he made 4 Pro Bowl teams, 2 first-team All-Pro teams, and 1 second-team All-Pro team. From 1966 through 1968, he had over 1,000 receiving yards each year. He was the third player to turn that trick after Lance Allworth did it each year from 1963 through 1969, and Art Powell, who was the first to do it from 1962 through 1964. He led all receivers in Super Bowl III with 8 catches and 133 yards. He retired after the 1970 season because he thought pro football was dehumanizing and too regimented. Third down with 3 yards to go ended up being a fourth down and 11 yards when the Vikings got their first sack of the game. Jim Turner connected on a 35-yard field goal to extend the Jets' lead. 1970 was Jim Turner's last year in New York, as he was traded even up to the Broncos for their kicker, Bobby Howfield, who would lead the AFC in scoring for the 1972 season. Turner played 9 years in Denver and was the third all-time point scorer after his retirement following the 1979 season. Number 2 man Lou the Toe Groza played 21 years, while number 1 point scorer George Blanda played in an amazing 26 years. With only 12 minutes remaining in the half, Oscar Reed took Turner's short boot to the 40-yard line. Number 19, Bob Lee, took over for Gary Cuazzo, who had a sore ankle for the start of the Vikings' third offensive series of the game. Number 26, Clint Jones, ripped off some nice runs, and he would be the Vikings' leading ball carrier at game's end, with only 20 yards. Bob Lee misfired on a pass to Gene Washington, who had Earlie Thomas beaten by a step. The Jets stuffed Clinton Jones at the line of scrimmage and on this reception, and the Vikings had to settle for a Fred Cox 43-yard field goal. Jets 10, Vikings 3. For the first time in the game, the Vikings defense stiffened and caused the Jets to punt. The Vikings had the number 1 defense in the NFC, while the Jets had the number 1 defense in the AFC. The Vikings defense was only allowing an average of 9 points entering this game. The Vikings started their drive from the Jets' 44-yard line, but they got nowhere. The Jets blitzed on 3rd and 12, which was highly effective. Fred Cox's 51-yard field goal attempt was wide right. With 5 minutes left in the half, the Jets found success with trap blocking. George Sauer left number 45 Ed Schrockman and number 58 Wally Hilgenberg spinning in Shea Stadium's infield dirt for the Jets' longest pass play on the day, 21 yards. Vikings defense then grounded the Jets, but the New Yorkers controlled the ball for twice as long as the Vikings in the first half and ran almost twice as many plays. The Jets' offensive strategy was to run the ball effectively so as to keep the Vikings' marauding defensive line off of quarterback Al Whittle's back, and it worked. The Jets ran 51 times while passing only 12 times. Number 37, George Nock, was a 16th-round draft choice in 1969 out of Morgan State, the same college that produced Hall of Fame running back Leroy Kelly. Ed Schrockman spiked George Sauer's helmet into the turf on this play. George Nock pounded his way to a career-high 117 rushing yards, and the 187 rushing yards by the Jets team was the most that the Vikings surrendered all year long. Number 84, Mark Lomas made this tackle despite a cross block by number 67, Grady Alderman, a six-time Pro Bowl player. On third down, Bob Lee's pass was broken up by rookie cornerback Steve Tannen, the Jets' first-round draft pick out of Florida. Fred Cox made his only Pro Bowl team in 1970, but he missed this 28-yard attempt. However, 4 plays later, Minnesota had the ball again, but they got nowhere fast as Oscar Reed tripped over Milt Sunday. Cox was called on again, this time from 53 yards, but his kick was partially blocked. Minnesota got the ball back, but quickly gave it right back when safety W.K. Hicks picked off Bob Lee. Talk about throwing it up for grabs. As many times as the Vikings offense shot themselves in the foot, their defense tightened and forced the Jets to punt again for the third straight 3-and-out series. Bob Lee grew wise and threw short to running back Jim Lindsey for 16 yards. Then called the exact same play the following play for a 22-yard touchdown. With 9 minutes left in the game, Lee hit John Henderson for 24 yards. Lee's next pass was tipped into the hands of W.K. Hicks for his second interception of the game, and the Vikings were thwarted yet again. Vikings defenders missed out on a couple of golden opportunities to get the ball back, but came up empty-handed. When the Vikings did get the ball back, it was more of the same, as Earlie Thomas pilfered another pass. With 3 minutes remaining, Jim Turner booted a 20-yard souvenir to fighting fans. Bob Lee completed a 14-yard pass to Gene Washington, who caught 4 passes for 56 yards on the day. Jets safety Gus Holloman was hit for a 15-yard unnecessary roughness penalty that placed the ball at the Jets' 33-yard line with 2 minutes remaining. Al Atkinson broke up this pass. He was a Pro Bowl player in 1968. On 4th down and 5 yards to go, Gus Holloman almost intercepted another Bob Lee pass. Four plays later, Minnesota got the ball back, but number 80 John Elliott dumped Lee for a 13-yard loss. The second time that the Jets sacked Lee, who had a horrible game by only completing 9 passes of 24 attempts with 4 interceptions. Lee was a 17th round draft pick in 1968 out of Pacific, who spent the 1968 season on the Vikings practice squad. He only threw 11 passes in 1969, and his inexperience really showed in this 20-10 loss.